Today is Thursday, 25th of June, 2026. My name is Francisco Gaffney, and this is my daily streaming all about governance, risk, compliance, and advisory boards. So today we have the full model in front of us again, but specifically we are going to talk about the advisory board operation system, the section at the bottom, the systems, the portion where we talk about performances, we talk about governance, risk, and compliance. That's the meaning of GRC. And the assets, the tangible or intangible assets of a company. So let me focus our attention in this section. And this is all about the systems, the controls, and resilience of an organization, right? Now, when we're talking about these things, on the model, the systems connect all your assets, your governance, risk, and compliance, and performances. And assets, as I mentioned, are the things inside the business that keep creating value. And we mentioned that yesterday. Yesterday also mentioned, we didn't mention this, but actually the governance, risk, and compliance is what decides what can go wrong and what must be done properly, right? And you say, oh, corporate stuff, jargon, etc. No, really, this is very important because if you don't have that discipline from the very beginning of your organization, that will pay dearly afterwards because you have to undo things that actually are normalized and basically are very risky for the organization. We're not going to mention them, but actually just to give you a view of the environments that sometimes we come across. And in terms of performance, it's not about the KPIs against the sales target, sales or that kind of things. The performance is whether the business is working as expected, meaning that actually is producing the what we mentioned yesterday, the predictability, the system, the processes, the capacity to be relevant to the market, and the commercial acceleration that is looking for. That is where the difference between a KPI and a performance of a business is operating as expected or not, and where are the gaps. So when these three are connected, the company becomes easier to run and easier to trust. And why you need that trust? Transferability, optionality, funding, you mentioned. And transferability is one thing, optionality is another thing, funding is another thing. We are not going to discuss this time, but make a note about these words because actually they are very important when you're running businesses with 50 employees or more than 10 million of revenue. Though, if you are a smaller business or a bigger business, keep those words in mind because actually they are very helpful to understand how your business is performing at the level that they should when you're looking for capital, exiting, or valuation. Now, let's take a look at three problems with the systems. The problem number one is that the business is still running on manual workarounds. Reports needs cleaning, client data needs checking, finance needs chasing, sales notes are incomplete, delivery knows things the system does not, and the team gets used to patching gaps all the time. And the danger of that is normalization. So just I mentioned a few things just to illustrate the case of the problem, but effectively is that people still work in spreadsheets, their own binders, their own memories, and this is very dangerous for organizations who want to grow. Problem number two is that the company's know-how is not properly protected, as I mentioned. So the business has methods, yes, they have content, processes, names, tools, designs, code, templates, data, but the ownership of that information is unclear, or processes or methods, right? Some of it may have even created by the staff, and you're not aware of. Yeah, some by suppliers and you don't know about it. Some by contractors and you don't know about it. If this is not documented and protected and belongs to your organization, it is a weaker than you as a founder think, because these things are very easy to be lost when the people leave or start to be as normalized as somebody might claim it as their own, and then you lose a bit chunk or portion of your intellectual property methodologies and systems. And when I'm talking about system, I'm not talking about IT and hardware and software only. I'm talking about the operation procedures that your company has, your workflows, how people do the things that they do to achieve what they achieve, right? So all those are part of the systems of the organization. Problem number three is that risk is separate from performance. And remember, performance is to understand if the company is doing what it's supposed to do. So the business measures revenue, good, margin and output, very good, but not enough of the control signals that explain whether the machine is safe or not. The machine, I'm referring to the business overall. So, for example, poor data, access issues, late handovers, rework of things, manual overrides, unclear approvals. So these are performance signals too. So just watch for them. And if you don't make a list of them, or if you didn't jot it down, just rewatch this section, because if you start to identify these things, you probably have a system problem. So in other words, imagine a car that looks good from the outside. Yes, nice paint, strong engine, you can hear it, good speed, but the dashboard lights do not work. So, and the brakes are worn, you cannot see that. So, and nobody has checked who owns the keys, which I mean the title of the car. So what are you really owning? What are you really driving? So it still drives, yeah, but you would not call it resilient, because if you don't know who owns the intellectual property of the things that your company is doing, and probably have not documented that anywhere, so then you have a problem, because that can be taken away from you and you cannot claim it back. Now, as a board advisor, what I would propose to consider is the following. Use the advisory board to turn hidden risk into visible work. Start, for example, with data. Is there any trusted source of truth, or one trusted source of truth? For example, an ERP system, an accounting system, an asset management system, or are people arguing over spreadsheet all the time? So this is a clear indicator that you have a system problem. Look at other controls. Who can approve payment, for example, change supplier details, adjust client records, override prices, or access sensitive data? If it's all in binders or in a spreadsheet or in a computer that only one person is managing and have that control, that is quite dangerous. So it's not transferable, it's not secure, that doesn't have a second signature or a capacity to have a second approver, etc., etc. So you have to look into that kind of things to protect your organization, and also data protection rules, legislation, etc., etc. Intellectual property, I mentioned. What knowledge make the business different from anybody else, and does the company clearly own it? And if you are interested in intellectual property, on Wednesday, Matteo Turi and myself, we have the High Valuation Code podcast, and we discuss intellectual property. There are 5 stages for intellectual property. People think they securitize the legal requirement and perhaps just having there as a badge of honor, but there are 5 stages of intellectual property, and one of them is monetization. So how you make your intellectual property produce more revenue for your organization. The other thing is look out into automation. And here I'm going to make open a bracket with AI, because this is start to get very interesting. For example, people are very focused in admin tasks replaced with AI, but because they are eating hours that should be spent on clients, on other activities, etc., etc. So these AI things are growth or improvement, or pretty much plain following the next shiny object, because actually when you have a mess underneath AI, what the AI does is amplify that mess. I'm sorry for the language, but actually that's a reality. It's like a bad singer. They might have a wonderful new microphone, a better PA system, but if it's a bad singer, the only thing they're going to achieve is to amplify how bad they are. They are not going to make it better. So the tools have a purpose, have a specific outcome. So make sure that AI is used properly. But there are many other automation things that you can consider. But look into this: are growing or helping to grow your company or improvement or not? And we mentioned performance again. So which signals tell us the system is healthy before something breaks, right? That is a good measurement of performance. So the advisory board should not make this heavy. So it's not to bring more things to your organization to make it heavier. The aim is not to create a slower business. The aim is to create a clearer business, something that people can understand how it works internally, what delivers, and how can produce revenues and profits out of that. So the good systems is to remove friction, really. They reduce reworks, they make handovers cleaner, they make reporting faster, they help new people settle in, they make risk easier to discuss without the drama. You don't want a problem out of discussing risk. Is actually you address, you take the measurements that are required, and then move on, and then document everything. This is where the advisory board is useful, because internal teams often normalize these problems. So it's so part of the day activity that actually a problem all of a sudden is part of the that's the way we do things around here, which is quite dangerous sometimes. Not because they are careless, because they are busy. So that's the way we do things around here, is because there's no time anymore to fix it and put it properly on the right track. So a good advisor can look into this and wonder or challenge you. This is a good challenge. It sounds, for example, it sounds like the team is working around the system, not with the system. Or it looks like your data is good enough for today, but weak for decision making, right? Or sometimes it feels the value of your method is not yet protected. So when you start to put all these questions or tagging these things that are observed, you start to think how you can make the systems of your organization better. So that is a kind of challenge that protects the business, not that bury yourself in more admin tasks. So what do you gain working with me? Three things: business outcomes, differentiators, and risk reductions. In terms of business outcomes, it's a stronger operating resilience. The business becomes easier to run, measure, and trust. In terms of differentiator, it's an advisory board that connects systems to value, not just compliance. You get international advisory board expertise, faster implementation than hiring a single executive, a lower overhead than a big consulting firm, not talent locked in, because you want to have the expert on the advisory board as the projects move along. You don't want also the kind of group thinking where everybody is thinking probably the same thing, or they know each other enough to say there's no enough challenges to say, hold on a second, what are we doing here? This is supposed to be this way, but we are discussing to accept something that is subpar of what should be. So the advisory board allows you to swap members every 6 months or every year as you need it. So the risk reduction is the hidden value loss, right? So weak data, loss controls, and unprotected know-how can reduce confidence fast. So the advisory board helps surface those gaps before they become expensive. Now, I have a little something for you. One action you can take home today, and it's doable in 30 minutes or less. And let me show you what it is. We have our little aid support just to help you to visualize what I'm going to say next. This exercise is very easy to do, and actually you can do it in 30 minutes or less. Write down your top 5 pieces of company know-how, right? What are your top 5 know-hows? And then ask these questions. Where is each one documented? Who owns this? Who can change it? And last one, is this legally protected? If the answer is unclear for any of these questions, then you have a system issues. Let me say that again. So it's 5 pieces of the best or the top 5 pieces of know-how your organization, and then on the rows, on the columns on the left, put this question: where is each own documented? Who owns it? Who can change it? And is legally protected, right? That is enough information to start to realize how a system start to work in your organization with, and how you can start to address these problems. Now, let's pause it here for today and reconvene tomorrow, because tomorrow I will close the week, because tomorrow is Friday, with Edge, the fourth milestone on the left side of the model. And let me put it together. So we're going to work tomorrow on the left side, which is Edge, the transformation, the reinvention, the things that make your company stand out and make it relevant to today's market and the future needs of your customers, suppliers, etc., etc. So I will look at how an advisory board helps the businesses stay relevant without chasing every new trend, right? So if you are a founder, or you're leading an organization, or you are part of an executive team of 50 people or more employees, more than 10 million pounds of revenue, and you want stronger systems, controls, and value protection, let's have a 30-minute chat so I can understand where you're coming from, where you are, and where you're going. So we can design, and this is a keyword, design an advisory board that brings you 26% revenue increase and 18% more productivity, with a faster implementation, like hiring one executive, with a lower overhead than a big consulting firm, no talent locked in, and a swappable members every 6 months or so. So have a great day, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Thank you, and bye-bye.